Hello, my name is QGG and welcome back to the channel that sounds like a long scam call that you haven't hung up on. Anyways, let's get into it. Heeseung and HYBE CEO Bang Si-Hyuk. It honestly feels like something new is going wrong at HYBE every single month. Because what do you mean Heeseung just left enhypen to become a soloist? In case you somehow missed it, which you probably didn't, because fans have been posting about it everywhere, on March 10th, Belift Lab announced that Heeseung will be parting ways with enhypen in order to pursue a solo career. And before the company could even breathe after releasing that statement, the fans exploded. Petitions started circulating immediately. Protest trucks were being sent to the company building. Fans were emailing the label non-stop. Hashtags were trending across every platform. Some people even started doxing staff members. To put it simply, fans are not happy. And I get why. To them, this announcement came completely out of nowhere. And honestly, it felt random to me too. I'm not even a fan of the group, but it was still surprising. Enhypen literally just had a comeback. Things seemed stable. The group was active, the fanbase was strong, and the momentum looked good. So why now? But I guess the infamous six-member curse in K-pop exists for a reason. Still, this decision feels like a mistake on HYBE's part. Think about the timing. They just put Manon from Katseye on hiatus under suspicious circumstances. The company's CEO, Bang Si-Hyuk, has been dealing with legal and financial issues. Their recent promotional materials have been getting criticized. And now they're removing one of the most popular members from a very successful group. From a company that thrives on parasocial relationships with fans. Did they really expect fans to respond with flowers and rainbows? Of course not. Because HYBE has repeatedly shown that they treat their groups like assets first and artists second. And fans are starting to notice that pattern more and more. Now, when it comes to the fans themselves, I will say this. Their passion is impressive. I haven't seen protests this intense in K-pop since the Luna situation. But there are some serious problems with how people are reacting. First, I don't think it's going to work. When a member leaves a K-pop group, they almost never come back. I genuinely cannot think of a case where a fan protest successfully reversed a departure like this. Second, some fans are actually making the situation worse. Why are people doxing company staff? Why are producers getting spammed with messages? Why are random employees being harassed online when they might have absolutely nothing to do with the decision? I understand being passionate. I understand being angry. But hurting unrelated people is not going to bring your idol back. It just damages the fandom's reputation and gives the company an excuse to ignore you. And third, the uncomfortable truth is that HYBE is still making money from all of this. The hashtags, the streaming, the engagement, the constant discussion. It all benefits the company. If fans truly want to protest, there are only a few things that actually work. Stop streaming the music, don't buy the albums, skip the concerts, ask for refunds, and stop giving money to the company entirely. That's the only language corporations really understand. Right now, though, everything happening just feels like chaos. And in my opinion, this situation is only going to get worse before it gets better. Katseye performing at Coachella. Now let's talk about Katseye performing at Coachella. Because I'm not going to lie, I'm a little concerned about how this is going to go. The biggest question right now is Manon. If she's still on hiatus, that obviously changes the entire dynamic of the group. And from what I've seen, there still hasn't been a very clear, official confirmation about whether she'll be there or not. Some fans on Instagram are saying she will perform at Coachella, but I haven't been able to find anything from HYBE or the group confirming that directly. So right now it's just speculation. And if she isn't there, that's going to affect the performance whether people want to admit it or not. Losing a member, even temporarily, always changes the balance of the choreography, the vocals, and the overall stage presence. That being said, I do have some hope. Their Lollapalooza performance actually showed that the girls can perform well when the environment is right. The energy was better, the crowd interaction was stronger, and they seemed more comfortable on stage. So if they bring that same energy to Coachella, they could genuinely surprise people. But there's one thing I really hope they avoid, and that's doing a full lip-sync show. Festivals are different from music shows. The audience expects live performance energy. And if they end up lip-syncing the entire set, it's going to kill the credibility they're trying to build internationally. We've already seen how badly that kind of situation can backfire with other groups, so hopefully they learn from those examples. I'm also really curious about the styling. Festival styling can either elevate a performance or completely ruin the vibe. If the stylists lean into something bold and cohesive, it could really help the group stand out visually. But if it ends up looking rushed or overly trendy, it might just blend into the hundreds of other performances happening that weekend. And honestly, I'm hoping they tease a new song. Because I'm still traumatized by Internet Girl. That song lives in my head in the worst possible way. So if Coachella is the place where they introduce something new, something stronger, that could actually shift the conversation around the group. At this point, they need a moment that reminds people why they exist as artists, not just as a viral project. BTS Concept photos for ARIRANG. Okay. I'm a little nervous saying this one. ARMYs honestly scare me more than Blink sometimes, but we're going to talk about it anyway. The concept photos for ARIRANG. And my first reaction was, how did one of the biggest groups in the entire K-pop industry end up with concept photos that feel this lackluster? Let me be clear before anyone gets mad. Suit concepts are not outdated. Suits can look incredible. Some of the most iconic photo shoots in K-pop history are suit concepts. The difference is in the styling, the lighting, the setting, and the atmosphere. And here, something just feels flat. The lighting feels basic, the backgrounds feel plain, and the overall composition reminds me of something you would see in a late second-generation photo shoot, not in a modern release from a group at BTS's level. Another thing that stood out to me is that the concept unintentionally makes the members look older than they actually are. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. It just doesn't frame them in a flattering or dynamic way. Instead of looking powerful or elegant, the styling gives more corporate law firm portrait energy. Which is confusing, because if the concept is supposed to tie into Korean history, there were so many directions they could have taken. For example, if they leaned more into a historic broadcast or radio station concept, it could have been really interesting. Imagine a rustic studio, old microphones, warm lighting, something that visually reflects the late 1800s or early modern era inspiration that the title suggests. Instead, the concept feels oddly sterile. Even making the environment more textured, more wood, more aged materials, more historic details, could have made the visuals feel richer and more immersive. Personally, I love flamboyant or dramatic concepts. I like when visuals immediately grab your attention. And this one just didn't capture my eye the way I expected. The album cover also feels a little disappointing so far. It looks very minimal, almost to the point where it feels unfinished. Now, maybe the entire project is going for a minimalist design direction, and if that's the case, we'll see how it connects to the music and the rest of the visuals. But right now it doesn't feel very impactful. What I'm really hoping for is that the music itself leans more into Korean influence rather than sounding overly Americanized. The concept seems like it's referencing Korean history and culture, which could be really beautiful if they commit to it fully. Because for a lot of fans, myself included, older BTS eras felt very distinct and powerful. There was a strong identity in the sound and the storytelling. That version of BTS really felt like peak BTS. The teaser gives me a little hope, though. If they fully commit to the historical atmosphere in the music video and the performances, it could elevate the entire concept. Sometimes concept photos don't tell the full story. But if I hadn't done any research and just saw these images on their own, I might honestly think BTS had lost some of their creative edge. Hopefully the full release proves me wrong. Blackpink's Go is interesting. First things first, I don't think it's a bad song. It's actually pretty enjoyable overall. The vocals sound great, especially in the group sections. And I really like the drop. It hits in that EDM festival kind of way that makes sense for a group like Blackpink. And honestly, I don't think EDM is a bad direction for them either. The whole girl crush formula that defined their early years has been running dry for a while. At some point you have to evolve the sound, and EDM at least feels like an attempt to refresh the energy. But I completely jinxed myself. In my last video, I literally said I hoped we would get a good Lisa rap verse this time. And then she delivered the line, "Go go dance." And the worst part is that I jokingly thought of that exact line in my head before hearing that part in the song. I thought, imagine if she actually rapped something like that. And then she did. I hate when that happens. The rap section just felt like a missed opportunity. The wordplay around the word, go, could have been way more creative. If they wanted a repetitive motif, they could have done something clever with it. Something similar to Kokona's bus verse in Woke Up, where the repetition actually builds momentum instead of sounding like filler. Instead it just felt basic. Another thing that stood out to me is that the song doesn't sound particularly original. Two things immediately came to mind while listening. The first is that Mama dance break from enhypen. It might just be a shared sample or a common synth from a DAW library, but the sound is extremely similar. The second thing it reminded me of was Wolves by Selena Gomez. If you listen to both songs back to back, you'll probably hear the similarity too. It's not necessarily copying. Pop music overlaps all the time, but it does make the song feel a little less unique. And then there's the bigger issue with the album itself. If Deadline had more tracks, this release would have felt much stronger. But with such a small track list, the whole project comes across like it's unfinished. Almost like a half-release rather than a full comeback. And once again it feels like an album where Rose, Jennie, and Lisa carry most of the vocal and rap distribution while Jisoo barely appears. She gets maybe 10 seconds per song if that. At this point it's becoming a pattern. Another thing that hurts the song is the lack of choreography. Blackpink songs usually go viral because the choreography is simple and catchy. Think about how many TikTok trends came from their dances. But with Go, there isn't really a defining move or performance moment that people can latch onto. And that's probably why the song hasn't exploded online. It's been a few weeks, and the general conversation around it is already fading. Which leads to another question. Where are the performances? Where are the music shows? The live stages? The promotional appearances? For such a highly anticipated comeback, everything feels strangely quiet. It leaves you wondering what YG Entertainment is actually doing right now. Are they choosing not to promote the group heavily, or do the members themselves not want to do more group activities? Because the result is the same either way, the comeback feels empty. One thing that also stood out to me is Lisa's use of aave throughout the album. It just doesn't sound natural in her delivery. Instead of enhancing the flow, it ends up feeling forced and a little uncomfortable. And then there's the music video. I really wish they didn't rely on AI visuals so much. Which is ironic for me to say because I literally use an AI voice on this channel. But that's not the point. The way AI was used in the video makes the entire production feel artificial. The CGI, the camera work, the visual effects, it creates this strange impression that everything about the project is synthetic, even though the members obviously filmed real footage. And unfortunately, that just gives people another reason to criticize them. At this point, Blackpink almost functions like a magnet for rage bait. Every release sparks arguments. Critics say something negative, and then the fans go into full defense mode. And look, I get it. Fans want to protect their favorite artists. But sometimes the reaction is extreme. Someone can simply say, "This song isn't my taste," and suddenly it turns into a full-scale fandom war. For me personally, the song isn't exactly my taste either. But I still like it overall. The drop works, the vocals are strong, and the production is fun. Just, maybe skip the rap verse next time. Tweak by Girlset. This song is just beautiful. And I don't use that word lightly. It genuinely feels like one of the most refreshing releases I've heard in a while. First of all, sampling Weak by SWV was such a smart move. That song is iconic. It's one of those tracks that people have loved for decades, so building something new from that foundation already gives the song emotional familiarity. But what makes it even better is how they combine that sample with a Jersey beat. The result is something that sounds fresh and modern, while also feeling nostalgic at the same time. It's the kind of production where you feel like you've heard it before, but it still sounds new. That balance is really hard to pull off, and they did it really well. The vocals are also amazing. Girlset is clearly being positioned as a vocal focus group, and this song proves why. Everyone sounds strong, confident, and controlled. You can actually hear the individuality in their voices, which is something that's getting rarer in heavily processed pop music. The choreography is great too. It's clean, sharp, and memorable. The only thing I wish we had more of are ad-libs throughout the song. A few more vocal runs or background harmonies could have pushed the track even further. But even without a ton of ad-libs, the performance still works. Honestly, their company is doing an incredible job with them so far. Instead of forcing viral moments or rushing them into trends, they're letting the fan base grow naturally. And that kind of slow, organic growth usually builds a much stronger and more loyal audience. I also like that JYP is giving them challenging choreography while still marketing them as a true girl group, not just another K-pop act trying to imitate Western pop trends. There's a subtle difference there, but you can feel it in the presentation. Another thing I loved was the key change toward the end of the song. Key changes used to be everywhere in pop music, but recently they've almost disappeared. So hearing one done well feels exciting again. It adds that dramatic lift that makes the final chorus feel bigger and more satisfying. And releasing an acapella version of the song was honestly a brilliant marketing move. It reinforces the idea that Girlset is a vocal powerhouse group. When artists are confident enough to release stripped-down versions of their songs, it sends a message. The voices can stand on their own. The Spanish version was also really good. It didn't feel like a cheap translation, it actually sounded natural and musical. Overall, the branding here is very clear. Girlset is positioning themselves as a group that can sing, dance, and perform while still feeling authentic. They're not trying to be mysterious or overly manufactured. They just feel like a solid, talented girl group doing what they do best. And I have to mention the little Easter egg with JYP. That was hilarious. At this point, he might as well be the hidden fifth member of the group. But jokes aside, if they keep releasing music at this level, Girlset could build a really strong reputation in the industry. K-Pop Demon Hunters sequel. So apparently there's going to be a sequel for K-Pop Demon Hunters. And honestly, I'm not that interested. The first project was fun for what it was. It had a cool concept, the animation style was memorable, and the mix of K-pop and supernatural action was something different. But that's exactly why I'm cautious about a sequel. Sometimes things work because they're fresh and unexpected. Once studios realize something is successful, they try to repeat it over and over again until it completely loses what made it special in the first place. And that's my biggest fear here. I just hope they don't milk the series until it's completely dry. Not everything needs to turn into a long franchise with endless sequels and spin-offs. Sometimes it's better to leave something as a one-time project that people remember fondly. That being said, if they do move forward with a sequel, I obviously hope it's good. A bad follow-up would just damage the reputation of the original. And honestly, the only reason I'm not fully pessimistic is because it's not a Disney franchise. If this had been produced by Disney, we probably would have already gotten 3 sequels, a live-action remake, and a streaming series by now. So maybe there's still hope that they'll handle it carefully instead of turning it into a content factory. And who dat? I have very mixed feelings about this one. There are definitely things I like. For example, E.Shaw's part is actually pretty good. Her delivery works well with the instrumental, and vocally she sounds more comfortable than she has in some of their previous releases. I also like the choreography a lot. It's energetic, sharp, and visually interesting. Performance-wise, the group looks confident. But conceptually, something about this comeback feels outdated. Hip-hop concepts in K-pop can work really well when the members actually embody the attitude and the vibe the concept requires. When the performers look like they believe what they're doing, it feels natural. Here, it doesn't always feel that way. Some members fit the concept better than others. Aria, for example, doesn't really match the tone of this concept, and the same goes for Niz. It's not about talent, it's just about whether the styling and attitude align with the concept being presented. And speaking of styling, I really disliked the choice to put a beanie on Aria. The rest of the outfits were actually pretty good, but that specific styling decision felt unnecessary and a little stereotypical. The bigger issue for me, though, is the lyrics. A lot of the lines rely on clichés associated with hip-hop culture. Phrases like "ice on my wrists" or "soul is born in gold" feel like generic buzzwords rather than meaningful lyrics. When those kinds of phrases are used without context or originality, it starts to feel more like imitation than inspiration. And that's why my feelings about the song are so mixed. There are good elements, the choreography, some vocal parts, the overall energy, but the concept and the lyric choices hold it back from being something truly memorable. That is all. That's the tea. Do what you will with it.